If you're over 50 and battling with stubborn belly fat, you're not alone. I know how frustrating it can be. In this video, I'll share some of the best ways I've found to tackle menopausal belly, naturally and effectively. You don't have to resort to drastic measures. We'll explore how to reduce visceral fat after menopause while still enjoying the foods you love. And if you're new here, I'm Dr. Gayla Gorman, a licensed acupuncturist, naturopath, and author of What's Your Kryptonite? On this channel, I'm here to help you reverse the effects of chronic stress so that you can cruise through midlife and beyond symptom-free, so that you can put an end to common midlife symptoms like chronic fatigue, insomnia, mood swings, issues with gut health, and even weight gain. So let's start by talking about why women struggle to lose belly fat after menopause. First of all, they typically have decreased estrogen levels, and then that affects their fat storage patterns. And so when these fat storage patterns change, it favors abdominal fat accumulation. I know why, makes no sense, right? But that's what happens. The other contributing factor tends to be a loss of muscle mass, and this can be also a combination of hormonal factors. Estrogen is just one of the hormones in the hormone cascade and actually converts to testosterone. So with less estrogen, we also have less testosterone, and testosterone is a big factor in the maintenance, essentially, of muscle mass. And so our overall metabolic rate reduces when we have less muscle mass, and this makes weight loss much more challenging. There's also age-related metabolic changes, and then also lifestyle factors. Sometimes we just feel a little blue, just our mood might be a little low because of all the changes and also the hormonal disruption. And so we really then don't feel like taking as good a care of ourselves as we maybe did before. And to add insult to injury, we actually need to be taking better care of ourselves. So it's really important to understand all of these factors and do the things you need to do to become your own PCP. I talk about this in my book, What's Your Kryptonite? Become your own PCP, that's primary care person, and really lean into some extra self-care during this challenging time that your body is going through. Next, let's talk about this visceral fat that tends to accumulate after menopause. So if you engage in a combination of aerobic exercise and strength training, this will help to burn calories and build muscle mass. But I will say that sometimes it backfires on us because this visceral fat is really triggered by insulin resistance, and that is tightly correlated to our cortisol management, essentially. And so if we've been dealing with adrenal fatigue and now we've got menopause that our body's trying to manage on top of it, our body's already under a lot of stress. So you need to be really careful how much additional stress you put your body under with exercise. For many women, actually exercising less makes more of a difference to support their body in burning fat. Again, I know it goes against all the advice you've heard getting to this point in life, but just trust me that you really need to go easy on your body right now and do things that mitigate the additional stress that your body's under. It's important to follow a balanced diet and really lean into anything that's natural, but especially protein. You want to limit processed foods and anything with sugars. And so sugar is not going to help. We're wanting our liver to be able to burn fat for fuel. And so the more sugar that you're consuming, the more your liver has to use and the longer it takes for your body to turn to burning stored fat in particular. So it's really important to do a decent job of limiting some of these foods that are not helping your cause. I will say that having a treat here and there, just making sure that you consume things in moderation that are triggering insulin resistance and putting more stress on your liver will go a long way to help your body trigger the fat burning mechanism. Also, prioritizing quality sleep and any other stress reduction techniques. So, poor sleep and high stress levels really contribute to visceral fat accumulation. There's just no two ways about it. And so, if you're not sleeping and you're under a lot of stress, don't be surprised if your body is accumulating fat. It's basically trying to protect you. And so rather than focusing on reducing the fat, you need to focus on reducing the stress. And we do that by really doing everything we can to improve our sleep. I've got a number of videos on this channel about how we can improve our sleep. And so you can search for those videos on this channel, and that will help you know what I recommend for especially women as we get into midlife and sleep tends to become a little more problematic. So when we're really wanting to address menopausal belly in particular, we know we need to boost metabolism. And one of the best ways we can do that is to build lean muscle mass. This requires that you're going to consume enough protein. I typically recommend 20 to 30 grams of protein in 2 meals a day, and so that you're going to get 50-ish grams of protein. You'll be surprised at how challenging that can be if you're not putting the protein on your plate first, essentially. If your meal does not have 20 to 30 grams of protein in it, then kind of start over and figure out where you need to start. Don't fill yourself up on food that has low protein density. And this is going to really help us build lean muscle mass, but actually getting in the gym and doing a little strength training can be really helpful. Honestly, though, the best way to build lean muscle mass is with yoga. When I broke and dislocated my right elbow, decades ago now, I went to physical therapy to kind of get the process started after I got the cast off. And after a few sessions, I realized that basically what they were having me do was the same kind of things that I did in yoga class. And so I just quit going to physical therapy and went back to yoga. And the yoga teacher said that she preferred using yoga for strength building and basically using your own body's weight as opposed to getting on a machine. So yoga is your jam, and if it's not, I suggest you try it. Yoga can really be all you need to get the job done here. The other thing we want to make sure we're doing is really limiting processed foods. I mentioned this before, but often with those processed foods come what is known as kind of bad fats. And so we really want to make sure that we're using healthy fats in our diet. And that tends to be things like avocado oil. If you're trying to use high heat, avocado oil can be a healthy fat to use. If you're not using high heat, then olive oil is fine. I typically recommend staying away from butter, but a lot of people, even if they have a problem with dairy, they don't have a problem with butter for a number of reasons, just the composition essentially of butter. And so butter can be a really healthy fat to use. You want to make sure, again, that you're prioritizing stress reduction. And if you have high stress levels, then your cortisol levels are also going to be high. And this can make it nearly impossible for your body to flip that switch to drift into sound sleep on schedule, essentially cooperating with your circadian rhythms. So this is just one of the countless ways that stress creates symptoms and other health issues, especially during midlife. I created a video that shows you how to eliminate symptoms that often accompany midlife naturally. So I'll make sure to link to it below this video, but make sure you hit subscribe too, because I share a lot of tips when it comes to dealing with stress that has become toxic. Relieving the nasty symptoms stress creates makes navigating through menopause a breeze. So this middle-aged weight gain, especially for women, takes a different approach to manage. And so we've talked a little bit about exercise here, but I just want to remind you that I'm not talking about high intensity interval training. I'm not talking about spending an hour on the machines doing cardio at the gym. I'm talking about doing strength training. I'm talking about stretching, walking, anything that would be considered a more gentle exercise that you can get your heart rate up, but not to the point where, if you're in the gym, a lot of the equipment will allow you to evaluate where your heart rate is. And you want to make sure that your heart rate is not going into the red zone. If your heart rate's in the red zone, you're experiencing a cortisol spike, and this is basically causing your body to store fat. That's not what you want, right? So you sure don't need to over-exercise, push yourself too far, and you're not even accomplishing your goals. Also, diet. We've talked about diet, but really 80% of the work here to get rid of the menopausal belly is diet. Diet, diet, diet. And it's not diet in the sense that you may be thinking. It's not like you're restricting calories. Calorie restriction is a race to the bottom. Rather, you want to eliminate the foods that are not agreeing with you and causing stress in your body, and you want to lean into the healthy, nutrient-dense foods that are actually helping your body create the fuel that it needs to be able to do all the rest and repair work. And this rest and repair work is essentially how we support our body as it's trying to flip the switch to burn fat for fuel. So just really, really important. The stress element cannot be minimized. And stress causes 90+% of disease. The research has proven that, and I actually think that that number is low because they're not including all the ways stress shows up. So what are some of my best hacks to lose belly fat? Well, first and foremost, fasting is basically the way I take care of it. When anything starts to accumulate, I have found that fasting is just the best way to deal with it. And sometimes if I feel like I've gone through a really stressful, toxic period, I may even need to lean into a longer fast, more like a 3-day fast. This requires really careful management, though, to keep from creating this cortisol spike and putting too much stress on your body. And so I have a process called Fast Well Week that's part of my Molt membership. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, you might look into the Molt membership, and we'd love to have you join us. I also have a process called the Human Energy System Reboot. And this, again, is part of the Molt membership, but you can actually even get the reboot outside of the membership if you don't want to join, if you're not ready to join. And fasting is just one of the 7 ways that we initiate a reboot. And I use different types of fasting. And so if you want to explore that, you can go to drgala.com/links and find the link to find more about the reboot. The other thing I will say is in my book, I talk about kryptonite, and essentially it's those hidden stressors that are draining your energy. And we really need to identify what that kryptonite is, what actually is creating that stress that our body is not able to manage. They can't manage the stress and everything else we're asking it to manage as our body is trying to transition, deal with a different hormone structure and that sort of thing. Like imagine a young person that's going through puberty. It's especially evident with boys, how their voice changes. That's creating a lot of stress on the body. And a woman's body goes through a similar sort of process, kind of in reverse, as we go through menopause. And so just go easy on yourself and really do what you can to reduce all the stress that's optional. And if your best efforts to live a healthy lifestyle and do all the things you've been led to think are supposed to work aren't getting the job done, you may even be feeling like you take 2 steps forward and 3 back. In my next video, I'll show you how to manage the toxic stress that's sabotaging your efforts. You can eliminate the symptoms that seem to be piling up in midlife naturally without medication, crazy diets, intense exercise, or any other unsustainable lifestyle hack.